All right, we are back. What is going on, Colts Nation? Welcome back to another episode of Bring the Juice. Your guys, Cody and Derek, back for another one, guys. Guys, we are within a week of training camp for the Indianapolis Colts. Camp kicks off this Thursday, which is definitely very exciting. So, looking forward to that. And so, Derek, in kind of preparation, we wanted to kind of look at some position battles that we are watching. We've kind of been posting them on social media, but I figured, hey, we want to talk about them in person and kind of give our thoughts a little bit when it comes to the position groups. We've already done a wide receiver two on the outside between Adonai Mitchell and Alec Pierce. But now we are going to look at the tight end position. And I would say, Derek, tight end one specifically, but also just looking at tight end in general. I mean, you could probably honestly look at this position and come out with multiple different outcomes on how that chart's going to, fill out when it comes to the beginning of the season. Because there's a lot of different tight ends who I think offer different skill sets. And so it's going to be a very interesting battle to kind of see the different players and kind of who does stand out, who rises up, who kind of stays where they are, and ultimately what's it look like, come September and week one. So with that being said, Derek, let's just start talking about the tight end position. But before we hop into some players, what are your impressions of this group overall from one to whoever's going to kind of be some cuts potentially?
Yeah, I mean, this tight end group is it's an absolutely insane group of guys because, as you mentioned, there's so many different skill sets of what these players can do. You got one guy that can do practically all of it. You got one guy that's the main blocker and red zone threat. You have another one that's a great route runner. You have another one that's a possession guy. And then you have another one that's a slightly less athletic version of the guy that can do everything. So there's a lot of different options here in this tight end room. And it's led to some juicy conversations on this channel over the offseason. You and I, one of our few disagreements that we've had with each other over the span of this offseason is how we rank this tight end room based on who should be number one and who should even make the roster at all. So, I mean, it's a great conversation. I mean, listen, if you have five players at a tight end room and you're having an argument about which ones might get left off because you're that full. I mean, it lets you know how young and talented this group is. So really hoping to see a lot go into this group, and it's going to be one of the more interesting position groups to watch throughout training camp to see who's getting the snaps, who's getting left behind, and who gets left in the dust here. But either way, Cody, if there's an injury or two that happens in this unit, I feel confident knowing that there's two or three other guys behind them that definitely have the capabilities to fill that role a little bit.
Yeah, I think you mentioned it already, but just the diversity of talents and what these guys are good at, I think it makes the tight end position just all that more intriguing because they're not all the same. I mean, kind of in a similar way to even the wide receiver room, you got different guys whose specialties are different things, which definitely helps out in the grand scheme of things because you can't all have guys who are great receivers or guys who are great blockers. Like there's a lot of different diverse talent, and I think that honestly helps you out and kind of being unpredictable in the different ways you can attack a defense. So that's definitely a very, very helpful thing for this Colts tight end room. But it's interesting because there's like different guys in different situations. You got obviously some of the young guns, the guys that are in years 1 and 2. Then you got some other guys who are maybe have played a little bit more. You have some guys who maybe haven't really done a whole lot yet when it comes to the NFL or have something to prove for sure. So there's kind of a wide different variety of players in different situations. So it's going to be interesting to see how it plays out because, like I said earlier, there's a lot of different ways this could go. And obviously you and I have disagreements on how it might go, how we predict it'll go. So I'm really looking forward to that. But I think the guy we got to start with, Derek, talking about this tight end room overall. I mean, we kind of broke it down already, so we're not going to kind of get into really all of the specifics. If you want us to kind of dive into each player, be sure to go check out our positional breakdown. But I really think, Derek, when you're looking at tight end one, I have a couple guys in mind who I really think are going to probably compete for that tight end one spot. I mean, the most obvious one to be probably Kylen Granson, since he did play last year and was that quote unquote starter and played the most snaps, had the best stats out of any of the tight ends last year, albeit didn't have great stats, but still, I thought played decently and made some plays down the field. And ironically enough, somehow it took till year 3 for him to catch his first touchdown of his career,
Yeah.
which is kind of crazy. But, Kylen Grant is definitely a guy, Derek, that I think he definitely is going to be in that conversation just because he's familiar with this offense and he obviously has some skill sets that are different for some of the other guys who are going to be competing. And just as like a pure route runner and receiver, I think he's probably the best one on this roster right now. What do you think about kind of his chances with this tight end one room?
Yeah, so of course with Kylen Granson, I think that from the aspect that what the tight ends you want in the NFL, typically what you want them to be like, you want them to kind of be geared a little bit more as that Kylen Granson type player because tight ends are route runners nowadays, Cody. It used to be that, 20 years ago, tight ends were, they were block. And then if you could also catch, I mean, that's a bonus. But now it's the exact opposite. They want you to catch, and if you can block, then that's an added bonus too. There's not many tight ends in this league now that can, do both at an exceptional rate. So with today's NFL, you want guys like Kylen Granson who are great route runners and can rack up yards after the catch. But I would say, for all intents and purposes, I think there's definitely a chance, but I see two obstacles coming in the way of Kylen Granson as tight end one. And the first reason is, and I hate that it is this way, but Mo Alley-Cox gets thrown in there quite a bit as well. And the reason I hate it is just like every other Colts fan that hates what Mo Alley-Cox brings, and it's not even his fault. It's Chris Ballard's fault for overpaying for Mo Alley-Cox, and we don't do anything about it. And you can't put a $6 million a year player on the bench or in very limited situations like that. You simply just can't, because that's just a huge waste of money. So that's the main reason as to why it is. And of course, early in games as well, Cody, we have Mo Alley-Cox is utilized in the blocking aspect of the game for the Indianapolis Colts. Now, albeit the Indianapolis Colts are under a new system in Shane Steichen, but Steichen still utilizes the run game almost as much as every other team in the NFL. Maybe only a few teams, select teams in the NFL, run at a more consistent rate than the Indianapolis Colts do. And that's one of the main reasons you have a tight end like Mo Alley-Cox, because he's the best blocker. He's the one that's most dedicated to it. He's the guy that has the best body type for it. He's the one that has the best skill set for it. And if you're going to run the football 20 plus times every game, like the Colts often do, then you're going to see a lot more Mo Alley-Cox in that regard. And the other issue I have, and we can talk about this now, is the Jelani Woods aspect of this. Now, you and I know in 2022, that offense was abysmal. There wasn't many opportunities for anyone to thrive. Jelani Woods was one of the few guys on offense that actually thrived in 2022 before his injuries, and he wasn't given many opportunities. So I look at it and say that if Jelani Woods stays healthy, the number one tight end job is for him to lose. That's in my personal opinion, because I look at the potential of Jelani Woods. We know the 10 RAS score. It's the best RAS score of any tight end that's ever come into the NFL since they started tracking athletic ability. And he showed in limited opportunities that he is a walking first down or touchdown if you get him the football. So with that kind of system in mind, and Shane Steichen understanding that Jelani Woods wasn't there last year. So that was another weapon that Anthony Richardson and the team didn't get to utilize. I know Shane Steichen knows that Jelani Woods is a favorite to win this spot, albeit if he stays healthy and he has retained 80% of his athletic ability. So those being considered, that's why I find it very struggling to think Kylen Granson can stay at a number one tight end spot, mainly because those two guys have something that he doesn't, and it's sheer athletic ability or size that just he can't match. I love Kylen Granson. I think he's a great route runner, and I think he's an underrated blocker. But I think just because since one guy is huge and he's a red zone threat and he can block for running and he does it well, and the other one has the potential to potentially be one of the best tight ends in the league if he stays healthy, I think that's what keeps Granson in the loop on that.
Yeah, so Derek, those are some of the tight ends that we think right now. We mentioned three of them: Granson, obviously Mo Alley Cox, and then Jelani Woods. Now, is there kind of a wild card guy, maybe a dark horse candidate between think about the couple other tight ends? You obviously have Andrew Ogletree, you have Will Mallory, you have a couple different guys in this tight end room that played some limited roles, showed some flashes last year. Are any of these guys potentially dark horses? Do you think? Potentially push for some starting snaps potentially.
Yeah, I think Drew Ogletree is definitely that, and one of the main reasons why I say that is just look at what he did last year. I mean, Drew Ogletree had a lot of great plays, even when Anthony Richardson early in the year was being utilized. Now, in fairness to Will Mallory didn't get a lot of chances early in the year when Anthony Richardson was out there. But I mean, at the end of the day, I think Drew Ogletree complements Mo Alley Cox and Jelani Woods very well because he's a better blocker than Jelani. He's obviously not as good as Mo, but he's more athletic than Mo. And also, I think and he's just a slightly less athletic version than Jelani. So, I mean, he's a perfect mix of both of them. And we saw even last year in the few limited times that we got to see Anthony Richardson, Drew Ogletree was part of those some of those plays. And not to mention in the red zone. In the red zone also, because Drew Ogletree is another 6'6", 260-pound behemoth that can go up and get it. He can go up and get it, but he's athletic enough that he can create enough separation to keep opposing defenses honest. That's the best part of Drew Ogletree's game. As much as Will Mallory is an athlete, because you and I know he was the fastest tight end in the entire draft class last year when we drafted him. But we didn't get to see Will Mallory put on that speed. He mainly is just a possession guy right now. But I don't think Will Mallory, in all respect to Will Mallory, he's not 6'6", he's 6'4". I get it, but he's not as long as Drew. He's not as tall as Drew. I don't think he's as athletic as Drew. Because he's definitely faster, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's more athletic. So, all intents and purposes, I think that Drew Ogletree has the best opportunity to get more snaps because of the fact that he's athletic, but he has that overall tight end feel that I think Shane Steichen really likes out of his tight ends, even though he was, again, a guy that was drafted before Steichen got here. I still think, I mean, we saw him get utilized so much, even when Anthony Richardson wasn't out there last year. Drew Ogletree made a big impact in a lot of games last year. So I think, me personally, I think Drew Ogletree is that one.
Okay. So here's what I want to do, Derek. I'm going to run through each name, and what I want you to do is give me a likeliness out of 10 that you think they win the starting spot. Sound good?
So just tight end one.
Yes.
That's it. Okay.
Just tight end one. All right.
So you said 1 out of 10. So 10 being the highest?
10 being the highest, 1 being the lowest. Yep.
Okay.
All right. So let's start with Jelani Woods.
9.
Okay. Mo Alley Cox.
7.
Kylen Granson,
5,
Andrew Ogletree,
6,
and then Will Mallory.
3.
Okay, so you're giving Jelani the nod, I see.
Yep, I am.
Not surprising, not surprising. Yeah, so just for people that were curious, I said Jelani. I gave him my highest as well. I said 8 out of 10 for Jelani. I think he's the guy that like you said, he flashed that potential. But again, he didn't put together, a full season. Not because he was injured in 2022, just because they didn't really utilize him until certain parts of the season. But I gave him an 8 out of 10. I gave, Kylen Granson. I actually gave him a 6 out of 10. I disagree with Mo just a little bit more. I gave him only a 4 out of 10. And then I gave Ogletree a 3 out of 10 and Mallory a 2 out of 10 when it came to
I don't want to give Mo Cox a 7. I guess I should preface that. I don't want to give Mo a 7, but because we all know that dude is going to get snaps, that's why I give him the 7. It's the only reason. We know he's playing. We know he's going to play at least a little bit. So that's the only reason I give him a 7. If he wasn't getting paid what he is and everything else, then I would just say, bro, I give him a 2, literally.
Okay, so just for reference, just in case you were curious, so Mo did play the second most amount of snaps last year for any tight end. He played in only a hair under 38% of the offensive snaps. For reference, Kylen Granson was about 43, a little bit over 43%. Ogletree was about a little bit under 30. Will Mallory was a little under 14. So just for reference, a little bit more. Yeah. But I guess the reasoning behind, for me, Derek, why I kind of put him so low is because I said, Granson got more snaps than him last year, number one. And number two, Jelani Woods is coming back. So for me, I think that takes that snap count probably more in the territory of where maybe Ogletree or Mallory maybe hovering between 25 and 30%. So for me, that's just a little bit less. I just see his snap percentage in the Colts offense just continuing to go down, because when I look at even in 2022, when it comes to Mo Cox, I mean, he played almost 51% of the snaps. So it's clearly a thing that Shane Steichen, utilizes Mo less. He did last year. I mean, pretty much cut his snap total in half when it came to percentage of the Colts offense. So, I mean, that's why I kind of have faith that Shane Steichen's not Frank Reich, and he's not going to put a guy out there just because you're paying him what you're paying him. I think he's going to put the best players out there, and frankly, I don't think Mo's a top 2 tight end on this roster. So that's kind of why I have him at a 4 out of 10, and then I kind of have Ogletree and Mallory as kind of wild cards, so I had them a little bit lower. But guys, let us know your thoughts here on the Indianapolis Colts tight ends. Who do you think takes tight end number 1, and whoever takes that, how do you think the roster kind of shakes out from tight end 2 to however many they keep, whether it's 4 or 5? What do you think? Let us know those things in the Let us know those things in the comments down below. But guys, that'll do it for this one. Thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, guys, go Colts.